Hello everyone, so today we're going to be doing my November manga reads video. This is everything I read throughout the month. This was kind of a weird reading month for me. I kind of was in a reading slump for about half of it, which does not happen for me very often, but the fact that this is basically the only reading slump I've been in the entire year, it's not too bad. I don't like that it happened at the end of the year, but it's okay. I did still get through most of my TBR, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about everything I read. The first of which was the case study of Vanitas. I read volumes 1 through 10. This is a manga about vampires. Well, it's about one vampire who meets this guy who says he's a vampire doctor, and it's his goal to heal all vampires. There's also this mysterious book that connects this guy, Vanitas, to somebody in the past, or a mysterious figure. I guess that's the best I can say without giving away spoilers. But I don't have a lot to say about this. I did enjoy it for sure. I feel like I should have read it in October. It definitely would have fit the theme with the vampires and the dark imagery and the monsters and stuff. I do feel like the setting is not utilized quite as much as it could be. It has this really cool steampunk setting. Sometimes we'll see these like airships in the background, but we never really get to explore that, at least so far in the 10 volumes I've read. There was an author's note in one of the volumes that said that the ships are really hard to draw, so that the author feels bad making her assistants draw all those. So maybe that's why. There's also quite a bit of romance in this manga, which obviously is not my favorite thing, so I got kind of bored with those, but I was expecting to get bored with those parts. Like the author's other work, Pandora Hearts, there are many mysteries and things to unravel and backstories to explore, and even though I've read 10 volumes, there's still lots of that happening. I feel like volume 10 was a good stopping point for me to take a break, but I really have no idea when this could finish. It feels like it could end very soon or go on for many, many more volumes. I have a feeling it'll be a longer series like Pandora Hearts, but we'll see. So overall, an enjoyable action manga about vampires, but not one of my new favorites at all. The next volume I read was AA Prime by Moto Hagio. This is a science fiction manga that takes place pretty far in the future, where humans are living on other planets like Mars and Saturn. In this time, there is an artificial, genetically engineered race called the unicorns, and they look like humans, but they really struggle with emotions. And in this society that's so focused on progress, they kind of symbolize humanity's evolution and de-evolution at the same time. They were basically created without emotions because the humans believe that their emotions hold them back from continuing to progress. So unsurprising, but this volume explores various elements of humanity like gender, identity, sexuality, interpersonal relationships, stuff like that. And I've said this so many times, I'm sure people are sick of hearing me talk about it, but I love stories that explore humanity through inhuman characters. So stuff like robots, AI, clones, anything like that, and there's definitely some elements of that in here. So I feel like the first 2 chapters in this collection kind of focused on those things a little bit more, so I enjoyed the first 2 chapters a little bit more, but this entire collection was very well done. Moto Hagio always brings up many interesting discussions about the human condition, and the sci-fi setting in this definitely enhanced that, so overall a very solid collection of short stories that are interconnected, and I had a great time with it. The next manga I read in November was Tekkonkinkreet Black and White. This is by Taiyo Matsumoto, and just like Moto Hagio explores kind of the same themes in most of her works, Taiyo Matsumoto I find also explores very similar themes in all of his works, mainly about childhood and loss of innocence, and this one is no exception to that. This manga is about 2 boys named Black and White, and they are pretty much orphans, and they live in the city that's slowly being taken over by this Disney-like corporation. And there's also some crime organizations thrown in there as well, and these 2 boys are very unhappy with the state of their city or the direction their city is going, and so they basically go out and attack people and try to stop this. They're only about 10 years old, so they very quickly get over their heads, even though they kind of seem invincible in the first part of the manga. The friendship between these 2 boys is the main focus of this manga, I would say. At first it seems like this boy, Black, just takes care of the other boy, White, because he is kind of more childlike, I would say, and he really struggles to take care of himself and understand everything that's happening around him. But as the story goes on, you realize that really it's White who is taking care of Black and keeping him from losing himself too much. So it's kind of jarring reading this manga and seeing these 2 children commit such extreme acts of violence. That's the point. Obviously, they have lost their innocence because of the crime and corporations, but it is still very jarring to read about. And honestly, everything about this is well done, but it took me until about 2/3 of the manga to really finally feel invested and feel like I want to read more. Before that, I was reading basically a chapter a day, which is very slow paced for me. So that's my biggest criticism, and that's simply just too long to wait to be invested in a manga. I do think I would benefit from reading it again to connect more of the dots and see Taiyo Matsumoto's full message happening now that I know the ending and what he's trying to say. I might also watch the movie, which I know came out a long time ago, as it says on here. There obviously is a new edition of this manga that came out recently. At this point, I'm not collecting it because I didn't love this manga, but if I do reread it in the future, then that is something I will look into buying because it is a very nice edition and definitely an upgrade from this paperback version. I wasn't going to include this because I didn't finish it, but I guess I'll talk about it. I also tried to read Break of Dawn. Long story short, I read about 4 or 5 chapters and it was just very boring. And I really hate using the word boring to criticize a manga. I feel like there are better words to use when you feel that way, but not for this. This was just simply boring. I was trying to read this at the same time as Tekkonkinkreet, and this is another one that I was just reading 1 chapter every day. So that was the start of the reading slump that I had this month. It should not have taken me a week and a half to read 2 one-shots. That should not happen to me. The next manga I read was Buddha. I read all 8 volumes this month, and if you couldn't tell from the title, this is about Buddha, and it follows him from when he was born to when he dies, with plenty of Osamu Tezuka flair thrown in there. There's lots of comedy bits, it's highly exaggerated, and there's plenty of breaking the fourth wall, which I thought was funny personally, but not everyone will think that's funny, I don't think. Throughout the last year or so, I've noticed that I really enjoy series that take place over a very long time and that cover the lives of multiple characters, and we see a character as they grow up and as they get old and they learn, and we can really see their character development. It's a very ambitious thing to do, which is why there aren't too many series out there that do this, especially when you have a story about a religious figure. It's very ambitious to tackle that. So I'm always impressed when a mangaka decides to write a story like that. It's been really interesting to read Osamu Tezuka works this year and last year because he likes to work with a lot of different genres. I've read mystery thriller from him, I've read fantasy from him, and now we have this political religious history manga. So far, I feel like most of them have been successful and they've all grasped the intended tone that they're trying to portray without losing that Tezuka flair. So I'm definitely enjoying my read through of Osamu Tezuka works so far, and I have plenty more on my shelves to get to. So definitely enjoyed this one. It's an interesting historical manga with a good message, and I was entertained, and that's really all I can ask for. The next manga I read was Kafka. This is a manga adaptation of various Franz Kafka works. Most of them are very short stories. The only Franz Kafka work I've read is The Metamorphosis, which is also included in this collection. So I really have no criticism of this as an adaptation of Franz Kafka works. I really have nothing to compare it to, but the adaptation seemed fine. The art is really unique, and I feel like it fits the very surreal stories that are being told here, especially the adaptation of Metamorphosis, because Franz Kafka has said that he doesn't want any kind of imagery associated with the main character of Metamorphosis, and so that's very difficult to adapt into a manga, but I feel like the mangaka did a good job here with that. So if I don't have a problem with the manga part, then I must have a problem with the Kafka part, and that is true, because I really just have no idea what Franz Kafka is trying to say. And I don't think it has anything to do with this being a surrealist work, because I've enjoyed surrealism before, but in this case, I just am left confused most of the time, and like the stories are unfinished. Maybe I should have read the works before I read them in the manga format to kind of make my own opinions and then see what the mangakas decided to do there. Or maybe I should read some of his other longer works like The Trial, because I did read Metamorphosis and I really enjoyed it. So maybe I should try again to see if I can figure out his thought process, because at this point I could not. There were a couple stories in here that I did enjoy, namely obviously Metamorphosis. There's one called A Hunger Artist. I like that one as well. But overall, I was left largely confused with this, not because of the manga, but just because of Kafka. And the final manga that I want to talk about in this video, technically I didn't finish in November. I finished it in December, but I did start it in November, and I'm filming now, so let's talk about it. I read all 8 volumes of Fire Punch this month. First of all, pretty much all of the trigger warnings apply to this manga. There is lots and lots of heavy stuff going on, especially in the first volume, but also continuing on into the later volumes. And I'm not even sure it handles those topics very well, but I don't think it's trying to. And that makes this manga very difficult to review. It's kind of very edgy, and I mean, it's Tatsuki Fujimoto, so I was kind of expecting that, but it's very edgy, and then I thought it was making fun of it being edgy, and then it wasn't making fun of it anymore, and it's kind of ridiculous as well. There's like a mech at one point. So I think for me, Tatsuki Fujimoto is becoming a mangaka like Shuzo Oshimi, not because their works are similar, but just because I'm reading them just to see what's going on in their brain. Like, what kind of crazy stuff are they going to come up with this time? So what I was able to get from this is, I feel like this is about a guy who really has no idea who he is, or who he's supposed to be, and throughout the entire series, everyone sees him in a different way, whether they see him as their brother, which multiple characters do, some of which probably shouldn't be seeing him as their brother. They also see him as a hero, or a villain, or even a god at some points. So he really goes throughout the entire series just trying to find who he is. Is he this villain that people think he is because he looks like this? Is he saving the world from this perpetual ice age because he is fire and the world is ice? There's lots of those questions going on. So I can't recommend this. This is not something I recommend at all. But I did have a very interesting time reading it and trying to figure out what it's saying. And at this point, I don't even think I have all the answers because the ending was confusing and I don't know what happened there still. I'm still thinking about that. So I think this is a manga you can kind of get what you want out of it. You can read it as like this dark, edgy seinen manga. You can read it as a comedy manga at some points. You can also see it as some kind of like crazy movie, which is also an element in this manga that I didn't even mention. So yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense, but this manga didn't make sense, so it's kind of fitting, but I did enjoy reading it, I guess. It was very interesting, and obviously I still have lots to think about when it comes to this, so not a waste of time. So yeah, a very weird reading month. Lots of good things, lots of strange things, a big reading slump in the middle of all that. If you've read any of these, I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts about them down below, but that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!